So it's very fortunate we are able to reflect on the teachings of the Buddha, such as Dhammapada. This month marks the Sagadava month in which Buddha became ordained, was born, got enlightened, and passed away into Nirvana. Today actually marked the day he was ordained, when he left home. A couple of us too, and together with his attendant Chandaka and his horse Kantaka, the three of them left very very early hours of last night, and then as he reached, he crossed this one river, and then he then cut his own hair and took up the robe of a mendicant, and then become a true monk, having given up his roles, responsibility, wealth, possessions, positions, relationships, and all the strings that which attached him to be the king and father and husband and so on. All of that, he didn't see any role that will be useful for him to play. For their only responsibility to finite individuals, when he realized that the life can be best dedicated for the greater purpose. So today marks that very auspicious day, Buddha took the ordination. And I just heard somebody come to me saying he wanted to become monk, so I thought it was auspicious. So, any case, we are also trying to become monk in some regards in our own way, by walking towards the Buddha. Every day we read the Dharma is already a great merit. Whether one is able to fully live a life of monk or not, but being able to have the faith in the Buddha and his teaching is a great blessing, particularly auspicious that we are going through the Dhammapada. As a really, even to remember Buddha, we have to really practice Dharma, but to practice Dharma, we have to know the Dharma. We haven't heard enough, or we haven't read enough, or we can't really practice the things. So that's why reading each week this Dhammapada has been very good for me. I'm sure it is good for you. Our lives needs good things. Sure, you need roof, you need clothes, you need food, you need other things, necessities. But if you don't have inner resources, how to keep your mind clear and wise, there's very many things that can just trap us. And so when we are constantly reading and listening, reflecting on the none other than the words of the Buddha, it's so safe. You can really say, I go for refuge. You don't just say, I go for, you are in refuge. You don't have to go there. You are in. When you're listening to the Dharma, when you're reflecting on the Dharma, we are in refuge. So thank you for all of your attendance, and I'm sure quite a few of you are also doing that through YouTube. That's your choice. But we have here quite a few committed live audience as well. So I rejoice everybody, because Dharma is so precious. You can't do enough, And every time we do, we know why we need it so much. And if we don't listen regularly, we can stray off the path very easily. So that's why it's very important. Merely living at a center or at a retreat center or those things may sometimes feel good, but you might be just hiding, or you might be running away. So if the teaching itself is not put in your heart, one has problems with the very people one live with them, so it's no rescue. There's no refuge in the center, no refuge in the temples, no refuge in the retreat centers if one isn't dealing with one's own mind, with the teachings. So we are continuing the reading of these chapters of Udanavarga, which is the longer version of Dhammapada. We have finished last week the chapter on respect. Today we will start on chapter on enmity, the animosity, the problem. What is animosity? Dikpele nemijepa kujamila kankuwa jikdende damparo tingi dikpanam ki ko. So this means having enmity or animosity towards those who have done wrong, who have done no wrong, who have done no wrong, obscures the childish beings in this and in the next world. So, of course, here it is explicit about having enmity towards those who have done no wrong. Of course, it's a very obscuring to a person who do that. Even to have enmity towards those who we believe has done wrong is still no excuse. What we think that somebody did that is harmful us or that harmed us, that was really wrong or whatever we do. The fact that they did something wrong doesn't mean it doesn't allow us to give the license to practice animosity. Animosity is no good whether they did wrong or did not do any wrong. Here it's explicitly saying if they didn't do any wrong. A lot of the time that's the case. They didn't do anything, but still people project as the person did such and such, as if they're so believer of their own wrong neurosis. The person may have not even done that at all, but we believe they did something that is wrong towards us. We never checked whether they actually did that or with that intention. But often we are led to believe that they did this and that was wrong, that hurt me, and so then one, and then when a person does that, it obscures the childish beings. Childish beings are obscured because firstly, with obscured meaning he doesn't even know the person has done the wrong. Wrong, is it really wrong? Is it wrong in from sense of what? With the intent? Can we read the intention? We hardly can read our intention. How can we be so good in reading other people's intention? See, there's a lot of that. So therefore, we haven't even checked. We're obscured by our own maybe fear or insecurity or neurosis. Think they have done this to me, against me, where they spoke it. But you really never know. That doesn't mean they really have that enmity to you or they didn't do deliberate to us. This is here we're obscured, having enmity towards others, like that, maybe one always think of what he have said or led to believe he used to do these things to people. Then one thinks he's doing this to me. So one has enmity from elsewhere, and then one just lumps it, thinking that the person did something wrong towards oneself, even though they haven't. But one has enmity. It's just like racially people. As soon as they think it's Israeli or people from Palestine or whatever, they just have the enmity towards each other, without even seeing they do anything. Just because they are Israeli or they are North Korean or whatever, Russian or whatever, they just think they are doing this wrong. Maybe they haven't. They just are afraid that we are doing something wrong. So both are. We have a saying in Tibetan, "Temo mita ranta." Wild bear is as afraid as human being is of the human. We think we are afraid of the wild bear, but wild bear is really afraid of human beings. He thinks that he's really dangerous. Human beings have got no match with the wild bear, but wild bear doesn't think that. He thinks the human being is really dangerous. So the wild bear is very, very sort of aggressive, not because it's got intention to harm us, but it thinks that we are after him. Usually humans are shooting at them. wild bear never shooting at a human being. To be harmed by a wild bear, you have to be so near. To be harmed by humans, you don't even have to be near. You know, maybe 2 miles away, human beings get shoot. Yeah? So people are enemy. People have animosity towards someone who haven't done anything wrong, and then they become obscured. And this is a really important point. If we do this will obscure our life now as well as in the next life. Next life we were born with this fear, always the fear. Some people have so much fear and anxiety. It's because they always have animosity towards others. And then they are not doing anything, but one keeps saying they're doing. Paranoia, paranoia. Enmity is a form of paranoia gone wrong. I don't know which is severe, enmity or paranoia. And this the next world, it's not only say today, but thereafter. We say it totally influences the way we think. People really troubled because they have enmity to some, or some people have enmity towards men, or towards some particular race, or some people against women. Some men like that. I met years ago a man. He says he just hate women. He said, I couldn't believe. And of course you hear people saying, I hate men. That's very common. When I say, I hate women, he says. Because they just have this, they just think that all the women are the same, or all the men are the same, or all Israelis are the same, or all Muslims are the same. But this kind of enmity then makes ourselves become so obscure in thinking every Muslim is like that, or every man is like that. And then one never feels secure, and one is so anxious that I have to be with these kind of people. And people are really cautious of anyone looks a bit different. They're all afraid because they have obscured by the enmity towards those people, isn't it? And so wherever they go, they have this animosity. They have this fear and insecurity, and so that's really is talking about whether animosity is something that people really did do something harmed us, or we just believe they did. Maybe they never did. And who constituted us? Who constitute them? Who harmed who? Who's really harming? The animosity harms us more than those objects we have animosity towards. Yeah. Dhammapada Pungjichin. He says, first it ruins oneself, the animosity. Later it ruins others as well. Like birds used as falcon bait, get ruined and also cause ruin to others. You see? So there is the it's like the fisherman, yeah. Fisherman uses the worm on the bait to catch fish, so one ruins the other. One is used to catch the other. One is ready to catch other. So one's animosity is like that, So animosity is like catching fish, really. Catching fish by giving worm to the fish. One thing one is giving something, but actually one is causing to ruin oneself, One thing one's catching a fish, and they think they don't have to go to the shop to buy fish. They just go to the pier. Is it? They go pier. Is it? Pier. They go to the pier in the afternoon and catch a couple of fish, and they're going to the dinner. They have no idea what they're doing. Of course, both is caught fish anyway, but it will ruin oneself later on. One thinks it's a good catch, but actually it harms oneself. They make the bait as sharp as possible. They make the string as long as possible. So some of the best kind of gear they can just throw so fast. They think it's good, but the more they do, it ruins themselves. Later on, they will die in tragic violence. They probably will be dying on the rock of one day fishing. They get swept away on the rock. That's usually only fishermen die on the water like that. You know, there is karma. You know, so although it's not enmity but desire. You know, desire for fish, as an example here. It's basically ruins oneself. So the analogy of birds used as a falcon bait get ruined, and then that also ruin and cause the death of others. So enmity is like worse than hunting, basically. And if someone is a hunter, we say, oh gosh, why would people do that? But the one who is resenting is worse. It's a hunter that is not recognized, hunter that is not labeled. So resentment is worse than hunting. Hunting, maybe person is too hungry or couldn't make his living, and therefore maybe just for food. Not with animosity to the fish. Not with animosity to the deer, or not with animosity to the wildlife, but one who's really angry and living in the otherwise very civilized world, but a lot of enmity. People wearing immaculate clothes, dress and ties, but deep down, a lot of enmity. Oh, this is so much sorrow, so much hell on earth is brought by a lot of enmity and vindictiveness. This is really what the Buddha is talking about. He's talking about how not to do that. It's just so painful to watch others do, let alone one do. Meaning by hitting others, one will get hit. Means by holding grudge, one meets those with enmity. Yeah? So if one has enmity towards others, then the others will, if not them, someone else will hold grudge for a long time. So you will get exactly what you are sowing the seeds. We don't have to do anything wrong to that person because we had enmity elsewhere, and we get exactly whatever we ordered. So by hitting others, one will get hit. By holding grudge, one meets those with enmity. So too, by abuse, one is abused. Yeah, by verbally abusing others, sometime in the past, you will get abused. Even though you are not using abusive words now, but if you're exposed to verbal abuser now, it means we have used such abusive words to the other before. Anger breeds anger. So it's talking about cause and effect. So the anger, someone who is angry to you is maybe not necessarily you did something to anger them, but you have done such similar anger towards others. So it's just like we create cause there, we get the result here, and so on. So therefore, when we understand that, we will feel sorry for those who are angry to us, instead of thinking, what did I do to make him angry at me? I didn't do anything, and become even more angry because they are angry at us for nothing. But if one understands this, you couldn't justify being angry at someone being angry, because we already are getting the anger that we did from them. So now, unless we want to cause the further for more perpetuation, we would see, poor thing, what has upset him, this is my own karma. I must be angry towards others, therefore I'm getting like this, so I should practice kindness. When you do that, then you are actually purifying the karma. Anger will breed anger, but love will not breed anger. So it means this is implying that we should practice loving kindness if somebody is angry to us. It isn't so much who's right or who's wrong, but who can heal it. One who practices compassion and love towards someone who's angry at us is real Dharma practice. It doesn't need mala, doesn't need ritual, doesn't need chant leader, it doesn't need all of that, those things. It's just straight away, straight to the practice. If someone is angry at us, if we practice loving kindness, that's the Dharma practice of highest kind. Even all the rituals, prayers, meditation, mantras we do is so that it can empower us to have such fitness to practice kindness and forgiveness to someone who is angry at us. Question isn't whether we deserve to be angry. Maybe we don't. But does it deserve them to be angry? Not at all. Poor thing. Who want to be angry like them? They must be driven by a multitude of unfortunate things. Poor thing. And when you do that, particularly if that is your loved one, that's a real practice of compassion. That's a real practice of 6-syllable mantra. You know? It is, you don't have to practice with all sentient beings. First practice with one sentient being. So Mayan is a very, so, I wouldn't say arrogant, so they think so righteous they do for sake of all sentient beings. Do it to one person who's angry at us, instead of breeding anger towards them because they're angry at us. But see, this person's angry at me. May his anger be short-lived by my not resenting him. Maybe he be well and happy, you know. So therefore, one practice loving kindness. See, loving kindness is to unsit anger. It's not to attract loving kindness to you. People practice loving kindness so that people love you. That's not Buddhism, you know. People practice loving kindness so that you can undo someone's ill will to you. Even that they're angry to you, that you do not have the enmity that they're angry at you. That's real loving kindness. That's immeasurable benefit. And now, if you did that to one situation, you wouldn't mind hesitate repeating that any other situation. But we have to have the benefit of experiencing, practicing loving kindness when somebody's angry. You know, this is real Dharma, you know. You have really lived long enough to see why Dharma works. It is not so much people are so nice to you, then your Dharma practice must be progressing. It's not really. You know, how can you measure your practice when people are nice to you? That's a dangerous trap. You need to face the volatility of samsaric sentient beings. You need to experience the rough and tumble of the problems of human beings, and then see whether you can predispose loving kindness. You know, that is a true Dharma practice. You know, anger breeds anger. But loving kindness will heal anger. So we got to read between the lines. What it's saying is, it is not painting a really grim picture of how terrible anger is. If anger breeds anger, what should we do instead? We should practice loving kindness, tolerance. Because if we practice tolerance now, it will make us to practice tolerance next time, later, you know, easier. It wasn't so, you know, before it was difficult, awkward, because we never used to do this. We always thought it's the other who's wrong, and why is angry at me, and he should be shown how terrible he is to make me to feel angry. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about how to be kind to use the situation. Mm-hmm. Amazing. These teachings are the wording is so succinct. And this engagement, chipates, this engagement chipates, tambe chola minkepa, yonzu tsendung dilaya kinechine comparjeti. Unlike spiritual person who try to practice loving kindness in face of anger, the childish who are not learned in Dharma. See, that's why we're listening. That's why we're reading these, so that we become a little bit learned. Learned means well heard. They say Mang de Tepa means well heard. In those days, they call well heard. They don't call well read. You read all the Harry Potter books, but still there's nothing much. Well heard, really heard Dharma many times. You know, well heard. When heard in Dharma, who are not learned in Dharma, brood anger over minor issues, even in this very short lifetime. Even in this very, people who haven't heard the Dharma, it's natural. They even get encouraged to do that by friends. Nobody will discourage, hardly the people will discourage. you know, over small things. If somebody does something, and even over small issues, smallest thing, they say, why did he do that to you? Why did you just let him be gone away, or don't do anything, not raise anything? How do you just? They don't realize the person who has heard Dharma is practicing that so that he does not brood anger over such small issues. He sees that as unfortunate error of theirs, and of course you don't want to criticize them. If you criticize them, yeah, it will upset them. In Tibetan we call sakpaso, you know, sakpaso. Sakpaso means you will accumulate contamination. If you complain to somebody that why did you do that to me? I say, oh, why you wanted to accumulate contamination? Because if you have to say that they did something to you, you know, you're actually accumulating. Okay, you're accumulating contamination. You're contaminating their mind, thinking that we were upset, you know. But we just, even though it did just affect a little bit, but we really took it nicely, and then we didn't let the sakpaso, you know. No contamination is accumulated. We just swallow the pride, and that is peace. That is real peace. You know? Unlike spiritual person, ordinary people do that. Spiritual person should have some practice that warrants them calling spiritual person. Not because they did retreat, not because they know these tracks by heart, not because they can list number of things. That's not Buddhism. That's just intellectual exercise. That's just IQ or something. These days you can do Google search and all the 9 things are listed or 12 things are listed. Everything is bad basically. If you go to visit a Buddhist site, there all the things you want to tap, there comes straight away all the actual technical information. Technical information is not knowledge, you know. The Dharma that really matures and ripens your whole mentality, that is really over minor issues. You don't even say it. You don't even mention it as if that was bad or that was wrong of him. You don't allow these things to occupy your mind anymore. It's just like your mind has become like space, and it's so big that it doesn't accommodate everything. And so it's not worth wasting time on that. See, you're not allowing any contamination to occur. Because if you say something, yeah, then it's already another problem. If you don't have to say, it's much better. Oh, I didn't do this. I didn't do the contamination. It already contaminated your mind once by what you saw, and then if you have to raise the issue, it's again contaminate again. It's have to upset them, you know, by registering your complaint or your discontentment, or your disrespect or whatever. You just see that is a problem of ego. It's around one's own ego. Then one really has understood the Dharma. It's very difficult to understand Dharma and comprehend it, and really get it, you know, really get the Dharma. You know, people really get into the Dharma of what is right and what's wrong, like Judeo-Christian way of saying black and white, you know. And the Dharma is all about middle way, you know. Why it's called middle way? It's so easy to get into extreme rightist or extreme leftist. So easy to fall into the extremes. So that's why it's middle way. It's not just a philosophy. It is actually a behavior that one needs to adopt a middle way policy. It's kindness, kind policy. The non-middle way policy is right or wrong policy. And then become very judgmental, very impatient, and animosity. Then one breeds animosity over that thing. It's clearly it's wrong, clearly it's right, that kind of. Sure, it is wrong, but what can you do? How can you salvage that? The person, the friendship, or whatever it is. Then you know, it isn't that there isn't a slightly right or slightly wrong, but even more right is how can we help the wrong? How can we help the wrong? Instead of being stigmatized and condemned by one wrong. That's not Buddhism, that's not kindness. So this is really difficult to get into the mind of people. haven't got really a lot of culture of really understanding kindness as the gist of the teaching. All the right and wrong gets really straight away. Quite a lot of the impatience people are showing in some kind of personal problems that people talk about is just because they're bringing in this right and wrong regime, and which is very really, which doesn't give any room for compassion, let alone wisdom. Why compassion and wisdom are more important in Buddhism? They don't talk about right and wrong. There's a compassion and wisdom. So we have to be compassionate to someone who is angry at us, who has said bad things to us, or who has harmed our loved ones. We have to practice kindness to them, because it's possible that we harmed them in the past. That's what the whole idea is. And if we can think like that, it's question isn't who's right and who's wrong. Question is, what can we do to help the people who are repeating that kind of mistakes? And then we will not brood anger because someone wrongdoing towards us or even towards our friends. We still see that as a amazing opportunity to practice. It's not a question of they need to be punished and that's it, and then we have no consequences. Of course, our brooding of anger will punish us more than that we punish them, like the worm on the bait. So we don't realize that how the brooding of anger is more harmful than anything. So that's why. He said that even of a minor issue, people brood anger over minor issues, even in this very short life. They don't think the life is too short and not think about it, just let it go, forgive them. And people are able to practice that, they're fit enough. Dina chochi samnesu, soso mashin tunjubin, dina gindu jebetse, chichir tome semmeche, rupa chochin sochola, tachu nogi chobata, yungonjumbar jina shine. Chinen jandum cheba da kebe dashi sungbe juyu tumba cheba chundin number shena ko keja jiji shemi yu. This is quite a long verse. Having thought the excellent way by having dialogue with the individuals, the wise reconcile the arguments. Wise reconcile arguments when community is divided. So that instead of the wise having thought carefully, what is the most excellent way to do it, and then having talked to everyone else, and the wise is able to reconcile the arguments in fear of dividing the community, and have powerless thoughts and lost minds. And then people in the community are lost to their opinions, what they like, what they don't like, that kind of people only say these things. I like, I don't like. When people say that, they just completely lost it. I like this, I don't like this, that kind of things. Powerless thoughts. They have powerless thoughts and lost their minds. And so, whereas the wise will not say, I like this, I don't like this. The wise speak considered words considered carefully, and when if there is a wise person among them who speaks considered words, the worldly then become reconciled. They do not become driven by what they like, what they don't like, and after battery in killing, robbing cattle and stealing property with destruction of the country. If this teaching is understood properly, which point the objects, why do you not engage likewise? So I was talking about how to reconcile the problem in a very skillful way, instead of punishing each other over who's right, who's wrong, what do we like, what they don't like, that kind of thing, but rather see what's really, really necessary to be salvaged, and not go into the areas of what people like and what they don't like. So if the teaching is understood properly by everyone, then and why, which therefore will point very clearly what is the point, what is the object, why do people not engage in that? Because unless they have lost their mind, they must have lost their mind. And so to anger, saying, oh, he didn't accept what I like, or they didn't listen to me because it's what I like, that kind of thing, just completely, without being realistic, what are we really talking about? What we really cannot do. So the wise speak considered words, or the person who really think like that, he would take back what his likings are, or what other people's unlikings are. So when they consider words carefully, then they will not spell out there, I like this, I don't like these things. They become reconciled, and they say, oh, that was a bit opinionated of me to talk about what I like, what I don't like. When it's not a question of what I like, what I don't like, particularly if it's something to do with everybody. It's not whether you want to have your bed put this way or that way. That's up to you, Sure, you can put the bed upside down and whatever you like. But when we're talking about something, it is totally different. So, Chöndijana Tebrako, Chönim Minke Lukjente, Kaja Yin Zojiba, Paropoda Mishiv, Danandilla Zombari. Says, you preach on a system that is unskilled, the others do not understand. As you are mouthing nonsense, therefore I strive here to explain. So the Buddha is talking about that others who are teaching a pervert teaching, So he says you are teaching people, because there is various schools of thought that if you tolerate, if you let someone's wrong go unpunished and you don't mention it, they'll do it again, and then that kind of, there's a lot of school of thought thinking that you are spoiling them, they take advantage of you and such, so that's really nonsense, as Buddha says. It's a nonsense. Therefore, I will explain it to you. Dina kepa kayimba, tesha teda shambe tsikishi, dala kasa dala shi. Dapam cheba she. He says, those who are skilled in this use conciliatory words to calm others. Yeah. So that's what it is. You have to first use very kind, soft, respectful words to reconcile others and to calm others, saying they blame me and scorn me and cause me to be defeated. He wouldn't say those things. Wouldn't say, he said this to me, it hurt my feeling, you didn't respect my feeling, you didn't respect my opinion. People saying these things, then you actually make them feel worse, even though they really didn't mean it, but we make them feel as they did. And then that's almost like inviting them to develop enmity. Yeah, even inviting them to develop enmity. Those who keep this in their mind, their enmity will not be pacified. Yeah. So if they keep thinking like that, they don't know how to get rid of their enmity. So they're not able to use conciliatory words, calming words. They actually talk about that you blame me, you scorn me, you said that to me, and so then as if they have hurt your feelings, they defeated you, they disregarded you. When you start saying this, then you are actually telling them how much you resent what they said. Almost inviting them to join in their resentment practice. So the enmity will not be pacified by airing your grievances. By airing your grievances, you think that you have said what is in your chest, but what your chest is a contagious illness, then it will go into the other. So best is just recite mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, and don't contaminate the air, really. That's what you're talking about, how resentment is, because people resent if you said something, if you criticize something. If you said as that they hurt you, then they will feel more resentful. So therefore one needs to be very, very careful. To say that the wise use conciliatory words to calm others. Those who are saying, you hurt me, you disrespect me, you scorn me, you undermine me, you hurt me. If those who say this, they are now mutually making each other feel guilty, and almost unconsciously inviting each other to justify mutual enmity. Even though one is feeling the pain, because pain, what people said or did, but one doesn't still say that you said this to me, that was really bad of you. I said, oh, they said that to me, but it's I have to deal with it. By saying this to them, I'm just expressing my enmity, and then they also feel even double of a reason, because they may have one reason why they said what they said. But we don't retaliate that anymore, then they probably slowly will calm down. But we make them feel guilty for what they did, to disrespect me. You ignore me, you disregarded me. We say this, then they say, how about you telling me like this? Then both seeing you in the other, but not in any of themselves. So, you see, enmity will not be pacified. There's no conciliatory words used by either of the two. So that's why if one were to prevent enmity from outside, we need to practice tolerance. Tolerance meaning distress that is there from the act from what the person said. Just let it become purified by our tolerance, out of our compassion for them and compassion for our future. It's more wise, much more insightful to do that than voicing one's concern, as that's going to sort of clean our name or something like that. It's very illusory to think that's going to get us anywhere ahead. Dala, kasir dala she, dapam sheba she, digan semla minzimba, di kun shivar gyur. Now this is, Shiva Gyu, yeah. Saying they blame me and scorn me and cause me to be defeated. Those who do not keep this in the mind, those who do not keep in mind, they said this to me, they just disrespected me. Those who don't think like this, their enmity will be pacified, because they're not brooding. They're not sort of acting as they have been still limping, They're not saying this. They blame me, they scorn me, they hurt my pride, and they upset me, they disregarded me. If you're saying this, if you're thinking this, that's a problem. Those who do not keep this in the mind, that's the practice. Those who do not keep this mind, but breathe out, just breathe out. One good exhalation. And then one good in. Then no, they didn't harm me. It's my stupid mind that can harm me more. That's very good inhalation. Then sorry, I was wrong. I thought it was them. Yes, I know that. Very good. Then inhale again. Yeah, I read that paragraph in Dhammapada last week. Inhale. should not think like this. Should not think this in my mind. And because because enmity is a thinking disorder. enmity is just a spiteful thought that they said this to me, and then thinking it, believing in that, and then validating that, and remembering the words they said, and kind of a facial expression they showed, or aggression they showed. Oh, he threw the book on the table, or whatever people say this thing. Yeah, he can throw himself too, but that doesn't mean it's going to hurt you. You feel sorry for the book. If there was a book sentient being, you will worry about the book, because he threw the book, not you. The people think that he threw the book at me, but how about the book? His book was his, remember? He doesn't know what he's doing even to his book that he bought only a few days ago. See, he's completely lost. Have some kindness to the person. He has no intention to hurt you. He doesn't know even how much harmful he is doing to his book. Very few minutes later, they say, what I've done with my book. So that's why you should feel compassionate. Then the enmity will be pacified. See, it's amazing. This is Buddha saying, no, I'm not saying this. I can never say such things. This is, I have to just think, wow, if we can think like this, if that kind of thought or body of line of thought comes in our mind, we are safe, And that's why people memorize these things, because so that this line of thinking can happen, So you should download the app, Download the Dhammapada app, so that you can just think like this every time. You can just think like that. You apply the Dhammapada way of reading that, because if you read it and if you remember the word, and they said, and it's really, really useful, they said this to me, they blamed me, he called me this name, he used that kind of aggressive behavior and so on. And if you keep in the mind, and then tell other people, this is what he said to me, this is what he did this to me. If you say this, that's enmity. That's enmity practice. Oh, you can tell the next time your friend tells you, oh, you're practicing enmity. You can say that, Well, they might then realize they are. Because otherwise they think they got some valid story to tell. As we're going to rescue them. Yeah, we'll definitely rescue them. Tell them, oh, you are practicing enmity. That's what you're doing. You're asking me to join in your enmity kind of friendship. So that's why it's a quite an important one. And then here in this world, enmity will never pacify those who harbor ill will. Yeah. Some people have no peace, no happiness, no good sleep. The reason is because they have enmity. Enmity is just there. Dina kunji kunjenda namashivanju. So pe kuni shinjuwa dina chuji ranshin yin. Patience alone will pacify enmity, for this is the true Dharma. True Dharma is that how your patient should work to pacify the enmity. But enmity is, patience isn't just a merit. Patient has to see the psychology of the enmity and how terrible it is, how untenable it is, how exposed it is to danger, to fire, to wind, to hurricane, everything, And one just have to feel, if there's a hurricane coming, people put some board or something on the window. But if there's enmity coming, what do? There's no enmity coming. You go and buy some plywood or something. There's enmity coming. Practice patience. Buy patience. Go to Mitre 10. Buy a plank called patience. Put it on the door. Put it on the window. Just to say that's to stop the storm coming. Storm of impatience has blown over many roofs. So one has to know how to prevent the storm of impatience by practicing patience. And patience will pacify enmity. See, this is amazing, Buddha saying, This is amazing, Supe kun shiwa shigirwa. Supe means by patience, kun is resentment, shigirwa, will pacify. Very, very amazing statement. It's like someone gone there, done that before. He says, patience will pacify resentment. It's just, it isn't just will or would or possible or may. He says will, because he's seen it. This is the true Dharma. This is the nature of the Dharma. Because Dharma means medicine. Patience is the medicine to enmity. Enmity is a sickness. It's not somebody else can do it to you. You have got the sickness in you. So the sickness wasn't put on you by somebody else. The enmity is from homegrown. Enmity is homegrown. It's not so much what he did to you. It's what we think of it, then become enmity. If we become patient, what somebody did becomes the cause of the catalyst of our patience. So they are the benefactor. See, this is exactly what this teaching is all about. See, those with animosity will never calm those with enmity. Yeah. So you cannot calm others who have animosity to you by your animosity. It just those without animosity will pacify animosity of others. Doesn't mean that their animosity will disappear, but your attitude towards them will shift. Instead of being hurt or harmed, it will arm you. It will say, this is an excellent opportunity for me to practice Dharma. So I must now predisposed, I must be a little bit more resilient with this. And so instead of being harmed very easily, very sort of vulnerable and offendable previously, now one is a little bit more skillful how to turn that into a growth, rather than turn that as a cause of your defeat. So that's how you pacify. It doesn't mean that their animosity will disappear quickly, because that's their problem. So you can't solve their problem. You can't solve their problem until you solve your problem. So if they're still angry, that's their problem. That's their problem. You can say to it, that's their problem. But do you have a problem with that? Not the same kind. Oh, that's good. Yeah, you don't have the same animosity like before. But they have same. That's their problem. You wish that you could. You are de-escalating this in the long run. You will. You definitely know that in the long run it will, because if they haven't had anyone practice tolerance, that's why they're so aggressive. That's why they're so impatient. They show zero tolerance. If you see somebody tolerant, you also be a little tolerant next time, and then slowly there will be hope in society. Not everybody is a beginner. Others will be a little bit more advanced. Others will be total beginner. You are total beginner. So you should think, oh, he's a total beginner to patience. He's never learned about it. Yes, that's average people are total beginners. they never learned this damn thing. They don't teach it anywhere else. They say zero tolerance. They say how to practice zero tolerance so that we can just punish and lock them up. Sure, we can do that, but that never solves the problem. You have no idea how incarcerated those people are. There's no intelligence, there's no compassion, and no matter how many millions of dollars they spend, there's no actual help happening. It's almost the people are minding them or locking them up, the way they speak, how they treat. It's not a correctional facility. It's like a punitive facility. Even though they don't do the same corporal punishment, the way they speak to them, the way they treat them is done with a really, really kind of aggressive way. When I visited quite a few prisons in the early 2000s with a few places, just the prison guards, just the men who work in those prisons really are a different kind of breed. Not everybody apply job to them. Really cartoons themselves. They're about it. They just like locking some people up. They really want to do harmful things, punitive things. They just hate those people. That kind of thing, like the relation between cope and the offenders, and they have this mutual kind of animosity towards each other. Those care and those people who are supposed to be working there to help this very, very little humane understanding of how much, what kind of troubled past these people have, and how can they be helped? Very few people. Says, holding resentment will harm the person. Therefore, the wise do not hold animosity. Holding resentment is harming self-harming. Self-harming. Resentment doesn't succeed to punish the other. If there was any greed, any sort of benefit to be derived from punishing others, it doesn't even punish the other. It harms oneself more than what we allege they did. It's amazing. The thing is that what we think that somebody did is one thing, but resentment then, since then, is harming us many, many more times than anything we did that we allege they did. The society is so driven as if that's going to solve the problem. No, person who's holding the resentment is harming himself, self-harming more times, much more deeper level than any of the harm that they are pointing finger at. So therefore, wise do not hold animosity. One is poison, other is medicine. The wise take medicine to get well, foolish take poison to destroy themselves. That's the distinction. That's the distinction. Tembeling henchi kebai dropo kalde kepa kalde nyena ni. He says, if one finds a stable and well-grounded, skillful friend to harmoniously to work with, this is lucky. Nyomo tamje ngombar silnene tende gawe iki tetanche. You see, so perfectly suppress every affliction, such as resentment, and work mindfully with a joyous heart. So that's what it is. If one finds a stable friend, dharma friend, well-grounded, understand suffering, see the importance of compassion, and see the danger of resentment, and then being able to work with the people who have this tendency to promote resentment, to make them feel he's the one who did this, he's the one who did this. Don't you know he did this to you? That kind of people who are trying to make you feel resent more than they themselves are able to. It's amazing how much suffering, team of suffering there is. When they wanted to make the suffering more severe, then they really work hard together, as if the person themselves, animosity, anger is not good enough. They will help, as if to deepen this resentment. And now one has to find the exact opposite. One cannot. One has to find a harmoniously, a skillful, stable, a little well-grounded, who will work with it to suppress those afflictions instead of whipping them up. Mindfully, then empower the person to have a very joyous heart. If it doesn't, he says, if it does not find such a stable, well-grounded, skillful friend to work harmoniously with, Yunko Yangba Pangbi Jabotar Chipuchiaja Dikpa Mijao says. The work alone, doing no wrong, like the king who renounced his vast land and retinue. He doesn't let all his land and people to go on wars. He just leaves. So if you can't find anyone to help you that is well-grounded and stable and give you really, really wise advice, then work alone and do no wrong. Do not join others to do wrong, That's what it's talking about, because resentment makes people to team together. You wouldn't believe how many times the resented people quickly go and do further damage than any reparation they do. Their act is not in repairing anybody or helping anybody. They cause more damage to themselves. Emotional resentment they're causing to each other is no proportion. It's disproportionate, out of completely blown out of proportion. And so therefore, suffer alone. Don't get others to join into your resentment, and because that's what say you should deal your karma and problem on your own, and don't try to attract some people who will help us, because then you're only going to spread the resentment in the whole community. So don't do that. So that's a really amazing advice, how to mind your own business by yourself, but not try to share with just as deluded people. They're pretty deluded by themselves. They don't need our delusion to make them So sometimes people hear so many bad stories, and then that's what just they already fallen. And when that story came, then they could completely collapse. Yeah. So mind your own business. That's really saying, because if you don't, what you're doing is you are just spreading your resentment, which is due to your desire, your ignorance, and so on, and then you are just spreading it to others. So just do it alone, and doing no wrong, like the king who just leaves and renounce the vast land and retinue. So that's an example of not get attached to the vassal, to the land, to the subject, and get too deluded into the situation. He said, if one does not find a wholesome friend with whom you can work in harmony, as working with the childish will not be good, then alone work with steadfastness. See, if you can't really find a good friend to help you, then don't try to work with it just as childish and deluded people. You already deluded on your own, and you don't need another deluded one. So just deal the alone deluded person. Be the alone deluded person. He said, that's quite a lot of yogis, hermits are like that. They just stay deluded alone. Deluded alone is pretty safe, because at least your delusion is not spread. It's contained in that little hut. Otherwise, they go to Gus's cafe and talk to everybody. Yeah, they say, let's meet at Gus's cafe. Oh God, I hope not. Then everybody who's at Gus's cafe hears your story, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so work alone with steadfastness with yourself. Do not share your deluded karma and the negative childish things with others, especially if you do not find steadfast, wholesome friend whose positive influence helps you to gain your mind back. If you're losing your mind, then just be a soul loser. Then soul loser, just lose yourself, but don't drag others with you. Don't drag others with you. Which is really, really important advice, yeah. This is really, really important. You have no idea how many you can draw your loved ones. They just really, they wish you well. But when you drag them, then they all unconditionally supported, but then they're all resentful. Just as was yours, and everybody is that. Then the problem itself is completely unattended. So that's what's really this chapter is all about: is how to work with the resentment and not with resented. Totally different. Because resentment is one is doing. Resented is only a reflection of the resentment, Chiba talks to Mingyurwe, he says, the childish are improper to work with, because if you try to work with the childish and tell your story, the resentment, then they will not let your problem be where you were. They will take out of disproportion even further. You never knew they would react like that. Yet they did. You can't even tell them stop. And then it just goes completely uncontrollable. And you wish you never did that, but that's exactly how it's very improper, So it's expedient to work alone Just as the elephant of Matang monastery work alone with the mind free of anxiety. If there's a wild elephant, it's better to keep in the monastery. If the wild elephant is sent in another herd of a wild elephant, they will cause havoc. So let the wild elephant be alone, wild elephant, but not mixed with other herd of wild elephant, because then it will cause so much trouble. You wouldn't believe how sentient beings have no understanding, no literacy about the harmfulness of their own resentment, let alone sharing with others. And then, yet they love them. They share the story to some who are very vulnerable, some to young, others to uninformed. If you do that, and it's just going to cause so much resentment and confusion and misunderstanding. And that's why resentment is amazing. It's like brewing. They call resentment in Tibetan kuwa. Kuwa means it's boiling. It's one's always boiling. It's just like there's never time that one is calm, peaceful, seething. It's always boiling. That's why people are very. People have lots of difficulties, emotional outbursts, because they have a lot of resentment over really small issues. They think what they resent is terrible. They don't realize their own bad attitude and desire and selfishness is making the resentment much more heavier than the resented thing. The thing they're resenting is it's really not a lot. It's their own me, my feeling, my opinions, what I don't want my way. Because of the selfishness, then the resentment seems like much bigger. They don't even realize how much of the seriousness is caused by self, and believing in the self as real, and believing in the story that self-telling is real. It's such a big cognitive impairment, We're talking about cognitive impairment here, resentment. Person basically isn't fit to know what is safe to think into himself. So therefore, how can he do anything? He's very impaired, very unsafe. He's harmful to himself. He's full of resentment and anger and bitterness. The bitterness and anger over the thing we're talking about, and really what it's all about. Really? About that? Then they realize the thing itself is not really big. It's all the ego got involved. That's the whole thing. The ego is my wish, my idea. And that's, they don't realize that's the cognitive impairment, because they believe I is real. It's the impairment. The I isn't real. I is just a concept, just a relative concept to others. But itself is not a standalone thing. It doesn't exist. One doesn't think like that. One thinks that the fact my view was not honored, I resent him, I resent them, and then become very upset and angry. See, that's the cognitive impairment we're talking about, because one is believing the I and its view being real and valid. One doesn't know that everything is only relative to one. Relative. It's how good is your view? It's only relative to what you have, what you can. So the resented is actually nothing to do with the resented. The resenter is completely illiterate. What he is doing, writing for his future suffering, is writing future suffering to sabotage himself. I'll make sure that I don't have any happiness in the next 10 years. He's right. Yes, this is real. I really want to finish myself. I hate myself. It's real. I really read this very carefully. That's what he's doing, But yet he doesn't know he's doing that, That's what we mean with cognitive obscuration, impaired from not knowing. But thing he's about resenting is it's nothing to do with, really, it's not a big issue at all. It's just neither here nor there. If it wasn't the ego getting in the way and believing in that resentment is caused by cognitive impairment. Nobody wants to resent. They totally don't want. If they would say, "Do you want to resent?" I say no. But then why you can't let go? I don't know. Yeah, that's right. Ignorance. They're ignorant. They are selfish. They just believe in the I, and my view is so real, and not realize it's only relative to how good it is to be to the others. If the others aren't receiving it very well, then your view can't be right. So you can buy your view on your head and tie it on your head. Get my view. Don't do my view. Is like some of the hats people wear on weddings. They don't even look like hat to me. They think it's extraordinarily special. It's amazing, You never know, When you think you're so important, you might wear one day a walk. Go to one of the Asian kitchens, hire the biggest wok and put your head, and then think that's the most elegant hat there is to wear on the occasion. Yeah. It's only when one is thinking that, I'm such and such, I've got to wear a really, really amazing hat so that everybody notices or whatever. Ego is so impaired of its own. It's not recognizable. Of course, ego isn't recognizable, but yet they think it is. That they recognize the thing that's not recognizable. They're so sure it is that. They're so sure about it, the ego and pride. But yet they have no ability to tell how much impairment, sense impairment. It impairs all the sensibilities due to the enmity. The enmity. Enmity just is cause of hell, basically. They say cause of hell because it makes oneself to stay in hell, go to hell. It's not a place, but the mind. It's a set. It's a set of the mind. It just get completely chewed up by that. And then people contract the illness very quickly. There's resentment and anger can completely disrupt your nervous system, immune system very quickly. There's no match for your dietary kind of a nutritional practice you do. They cannot. They're just little window dressings. So therefore, Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, teachings of the Buddha is all about how to practice loving kindness. Loving kindness is the really intended teaching for this. When it talks about the chapter is on enmity. That's the root. That's the origin of suffering. True origin of suffering is enmity. The suffering is the resentment itself. Now, what it doesn't say about this chapter is, so what is the path? What is path out of a resentment? And how could one stop this, cause the cessation of resentment? Firstly, the object towards thing we are resenting to, is object of pity and compassion. If they did such harmful thing, unpleasant thing to anyone, is a sad thing, because it's heavy karma for anybody to do such a thing, and let alone to us. So put yourself in their shoes that is resented, and then you will practice not resentment but compassion. It's like the practice compassion to the cruel. In the Mahayana Sutta Ranangara, it lists 10 objects of compassion. One is practice compassion to one who's cruel, one who's cruel to whoever, you include. Compassion to a cruel person is the most poignant moment and object to which you practice compassion. Because compassion is the path, remember? Path. The resentment is the origin of sorrow. And the sorrow is there, suffering is there. So that if you practice compassion, you practice compassion to the cruel person who does that to you or to anybody. But if you don't do the compassion, what will you do? You will do resentment. So therefore, this chapter, when you talk about resentment, this is also a chapter on how to practice loving kindness. Because we don't want to be too negative about the suffering and its origin of suffering. We also want to say this: the teaching is always implying. One is implied teaching. One is explicit teaching. Yeah? Explicitly, the teaching is on demerits of enmity and so on, but implicitly, it is saying the merits of loving kindness. When you practice loving kindness to someone who is cruel, then you don't say they're cruel and then condemn them. You know, Buddha didn't condemn Angulimala. He practiced compassion because Angulimala was not only practicing cruelty and violence, but he was becoming the object of resentment of whole community. He was the object of resentment. And there was no shortage of people resenting him, but there was very few who weren't resenting. Everybody wanted to finish him. Even if they kill him, they probably will still not stop resentment. But only thing that has stopped the resentment was Buddha knowing that this person who is cruel to kill those people's loved ones and so on is actually cruel to himself more than he intend to be cruel to others. He don't even know that. So Buddha's compassion foresaw the attitude and psychology of suffering of Angulimala. Because of that, he practiced loving kindness, compassion, forgave him, unconditionally accepted in the Sangha, and gave him ordination. Now that is practice of compassion to the cruel person. We don't brand someone who's cruel, and then everybody throws stones at him. There's nothing Buddhism about it. There's no Buddhism there. It's not Buddhism, particularly not in the West. It's so young. Buddhism is so young. When they try to treat social difficulties with their previous Judeo-Christian way of punishing and saying what is white is what is black and that's it. Then there's no. How many years these people understood and studied Dharma? They didn't understand any Dharma. So they understand Dharma is completely intellectual. Yeah, completely intellectual materialist. Those who really understand Dharma, are drawn to Dharma, has to better themselves by saying who's right and who's wrong and who should be throwing stones at someone who's cruel. This cruel person, who is the cruel among the majority of people are decent. Let's say everyone is decent except one or two is cruel. Now, the cruel is the object of the compassion. Cruel is the object of non-resentment. Everybody is orderly, remember, so we have no one to resent to. So how do we practice compassion if we do not practice it to the cruel person, to the violent person, to the whatever the person or individuals do with the society, raise their eyebrows. Yeah, what should they do if they are Buddhist? When Buddha says don't resent means practice compassion. You know, Buddha's teachings are provisional teachings, imperative teachings, literal teachings. Not just interpret everything literally, and as if there's no room for wisdom, there's no room for compassion, there's no room for understanding. If we don't practice compassion to the cruel and as violent and aggressive and whatever, then do we practice compassion to whom? Who? You know, to all the people who are very, very orderly, very by the book. We can't get enlightenment. Everybody being so perfect. To gain enlightenment means how not to turn the darkness into darkness, but turn the darkness into light. Yeah, the cruelty of somebody is already bad enough. Now, what do we do? So therefore, the truth of the path is practice compassion. Don't practice resentment. If you practice compassion, then there will be cessation of the resentment from our side. Why? Because the resented is object. How we look at the resented, we change our attitude. When we look at the resented as object of compassion, then we don't have resentment, even to the cruel, and we have compassion. So that is the truth of the cessation. Then there will be a practice of Dharma really happening. Without that, try to use the Dharma and half-heartedly Dharma, but actually not treating the compassion that the Buddha said, practice compassion. There is the one Dharma that people must learn. That one Dharma is practice of compassion. Why? Because resentment and anger and all those things are too much in the society. And so, therefore, it implies how one should practice the path. And however uphill battle it is, but still it is practice. Otherwise, it's not practice. There's no need to be in Dharma if one were to want to go into that retaliatory, punitive go. Buddha never resorted to those things. Then why should we follow Buddha? Because we are not doing what the teaching says. So, therefore, embracing compassion and forgiveness, even say one can't really. One can't forgive everyone or do not resent, but if you want to resent, just do yourself under the bridge. That's what I'm saying. You just go and do yourself under the bridge and don't make everybody else share your resentment. So don't make it a kind of a don't make it to spoil everybody's broth, so to speak. Deal with your own story. Why one is able to bring those seeding resentment now, not 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, if that was so bad, So it's really talking about resentment is danger. Here not only talking about resentment of one person, but danger of sharing resentment to others. So particularly in terms of because Buddha, like omniscient, he says just like the Matanga elephant, just isolate him from mixing with other mad elephant. Matangi monastery has to deal with that mad elephant just by one, but it mixed with other mad elephant, it will cause havoc. So what does this mean is that we should learn to find friends who are stable and wholesome, with whom we can talk about our resentment, anger, how to deal with it, but just to recover ourselves. But we shouldn't go to people with intention to spread the resentment to others. If we do that, then you're only spreading the disease, cancer. Really, it's more cancer than the physical cancer, And so Buddha is amazing, saying that how to make that as a personal suffering. Let that become personalized suffering. Go somewhere and deal with it, rather than mixing with the other deluded people and so on. Because that kind of understanding is showing how resentment is like a poison, how it's spread like a wildfire. And so therefore one should work alone with the mind, free of anxiety, and believe in the Dharma, and not into the activities of spreading their resentment, spreading their animosity and anger to others, because who are similar things. Then you almost have a huge cause, haven't you? Then we want to correct the whole world, save the whole world, The ego is so big that one doesn't contain one's own problem. One wants to save the whole world, But in turn, try to save the whole world, one actually set the whole forest into fire. Everybody's escaping now. Yeah, it's like that. So one needs to mind one's own sorrow discreetly with the wise one. I'm sure there's someone who's a little bit wise, but if our intention is to really get help, then it will be good help. It will be good help, because they will teach you. They will actually teach you how to contain those personal miseries or resentment without letting it become uncontrolled suffering as it may have been. So that concludes that chapter. There is so much there about not only talking about who did what to us, but what should we not think about. Because resentment is a thinking disorder. It's not the wrongdoing of others that harms us. It's how our resenting and believing that they did something maybe they didn't even do. It appeared as they did it. You just believe they did it. You just have heard they did it. You just read they did it. But actually they didn't really do it, intently. So the lots of resentment are completely fictions. They're not mostly, half-baked story. It is only a hearsay. If you really check your own problem, even though directly relate with somebody, you realize the person you thought did this to you really didn't do that at all. It was just complete confusion, misunderstanding. You just keep thinking he did this. He had no idea he was doing that to harm you. He just wasn't in a very good space, and there was no intent from him to do that to you. It's just where you read it was just completely disproportionate. Often we are not even aware that we might be doing that. That caused us to justify resentment, as if resentment is justifiable or something. There's no justifiable resentment. Even if he planned 5 months to harm us, even we know all of that, but still, there's no. Wow, when somebody's so driven by anger and craving and so on, they do this. Wow, poor thing. They suffered, they schemed all of that just due to me, and one actually developed even more compassion. Then you see, then one is really informed, because without the facts, we just have partially sort of propped up stories, and we think that they did do something wrong to us, and we justify resenting them. Not only that, and then we try to bring everybody else with that as if it's too much a story, too much a problem, and then the house society becomes so caught into this story as a drama, and without realizing that they're actually inseminating resentment in the society. And the Bodhisattva's vow says that to make people guilty for the partial mistake they did is more heavier karma than the actual guilt, the one who's guilty of doing that, making them guiltier than they themselves did, by us throwing stone at them, by us making them blaming and guilty, and making them feel as they're entirely responsible. Because teaching says nothing is entirely independently doable. Everything is independently originated. And so therefore the whole belief that something is done unitarily and autonomously by somebody to hurt me, it's already is cognitively wrong. Completely wrong. It's completely impaired, completely wrong. It's just like reading upside down or back to front. Partially that person responds, but nevertheless it's totally due to many causes or conditions. At least we have a breathing space. And that's what stops us from resenting. See, it is not practicing compassion is not a question of being pious or unpious. Practicing compassion is about how great a wisdom we have to know that's why the sorrow or suffering is there due to many causes and conditions, not by one thing that's causing everything. When you are able to see that, then your compassion is really, really great compassion, because you have wisdom discerning the lack of inherent existence of the thing. Otherwise, when we don't have that, then every reason to be resentful, and there aren't enough time. People are taught about resentment and the dangers. Amazing. Society has aggression, violence. They talk about aggression and violence, bro. Violence. Violence comes from resentment. Resentment is the cause of the violence. Someone is waiting to ambush. Someone is waiting an opportunity to strike because they're resenting. And they don't just say, no, today I'm going to be violent. Whoever I see, I'll just shoot. No. The person has been resenting the place that he was fired from the job or something, So he wanted to do that as a result of resentment. Even if violence doesn't happen, It was the good thing about say you're alive. You're not doing anything violent to anybody. It's because there isn't a deep resentment. Even you're not saying very harsh words. It's because you have no resentment. But if you have resentment, it would not. It's like a bottle. When you open a bottle, it just shows like that. One who has no resentment doesn't speak harsh, hurtful, negative, let alone aggressive physical behaviors. So that's why the resentment, why they could have talked about a chapter on violence. No chapter on violence. The cause of violence is resentment. So the true origin of suffering is resentment. Hence, one must try to stop resentment. They say origin of suffering must be discovered, and when you discover the origin, it must be stopped. The stoppage is caused by the practice in the path. The path is loving kindness. And so, and amazing thing about the early teachings of the Buddha, the chapters are like these, kind of some similar verses are compiled together, and not sort of intelligibly called like patience or diligence or like that. It's called resentment. Simple as that. Who wanted to read a chapter on resentment? This doesn't sound very Buddhist, But if Buddha was really useful, is if you talk about the root cause of suffering, how much of the suffering is caused by resentment, then they realized, what would be the remedy for that? So most early teachings are like that. They really, really sort of kind of a little bit sort of organic, I suppose. And particularly the people who compile these together, I don't know whether Buddha said each of these verses all one after another, or said that one there, that one there, that one there. So they compiled together, So I'm sure they did the compiling, because this is a compilation. This is not one writing. Buddha sat one day, one afternoon under the Bodhi tree with his left leg on the right leg. I'm going to today write a chapter on resentment. I don't think that was the case. It was Buddha would have spoken about these things here and there and there, and then they all collated together, So with this we will conclude. Next week, as you may have received an email, we are doing instead of this session, we are doing the Sagadawa celebration, full moon, and we're doing a 16-hour puja and a little bit of supper, and invite